How you going, Chris?
Good. Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Chris McElwain, and I'm joined by Sean Conley away from Australia. Sean, thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was good. But it's a good win, comfortable 3-1. I enjoyed the game overall. Yeah, like feels like the last few weeks, but just it's not that we stopped trying after the hour. It's when the subs come on, we get a bit sloppy, and it felt like that again. Like there's one kind of run late on with Yang where he's tried to take on three different men, and it's that kind of sloppy decision making after then later on in the game. But look, overall, we were great for an hour again. We played very, very well in the first half. It was a very enjoyable game to watch. We're looking really good, and I really enjoyed the game and glad to be through. Enjoyed the win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of positives to take. Obviously, first half, the intensity was excellent despite losing the goal. I think the intensity did what it's done in previous weeks. It kind of dropped off a little bit in the second half. There were a couple of elements I really liked about today, however, one of which was our ability to win the ball back. I actually thought Callum McGregor had an excellent performance in midfield. He was very much playing that kind of sweeper role, just the kind of trying to say this correctly, anchor man, just ahead of the defence. I thought he was actually very, very good at sweeping up some of the loose balls, as we were trying to probe forward. So that was excellent. I think Maeda, great overall performance, really put himself about, some great movement. Kuhn, I think, possibly his best performance in a Celtic shirt again. I thought it was excellent. Thought James A. Forrest did very, very well. But the man that stood out for me, and interesting to see if people in the comments agree, was Rio Hatate. The question I would ask is, did Rio Hatate give us some insight into what we missed for large parts of last season, and that we didn't have that, I guess, what you consider our established first choice midfield three with O'Reilly, Hatate, and McGregor. I think today Hatate gave us a little bit of an insight into what we missed last year.
Yeah, I definitely thought he was good. I still think he can be a bit poor decision making at time, but some of his passing and movement was really good. He's obviously gets the assist for the first goal. There were some balls in behind in the second half that were really good. I still think he's not as good as O'Reilly or McGregor on any given day, but he did have a very good game today. I agree with what you're saying about McGregor. When Bowie came on for Hibs, he was really up for it, and he was looking to get into the fight. And there was one incident where he's getting forward, and McGregor just gets in front of him, takes the ball, and basically, I don't think we've seen him again. Bowie after that, I think he just gave up after that point. So, I think apart from McGregor's like footballing ability, is like psychological warfare ability is very good. We've seen that in the past as well, and it was there today again.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you bring in some of the comments here, see what people thought of the overall performance? So, start with Patrick. Welcome to the channel. Nobody will touch us this season. Only obstacle to us is us. Get 3 more quality players in. We'll be unstoppable in the league and a force to be reckoned with in Europe. Yeah, I love the optimism. I think there's a lot of validity to that comment. I think you're right. We're in a position of strength at the moment, and it's on the onus is on the club really to build on that. I think we have the opportunity to add quality and depth. I think it's very, very important we do that. So yeah, I completely agree with Patrick. Coming from Woozy there, I think hopefully pronounced that right, Woozy. O'Reilly, Hatate, and McGregor are class, probably best midfield I've seen in my lifetime. I won't make any.
I don't know how old Woozy is.
I was going to say I'm not going to make any assumptions about Woozy's age, but let's say those of us of a certain vintage have been fortunate enough to see some tremendous midfields. But I would say certainly in the last couple of years, it's a very strong contender for top midfield. Sean Fairley comes in. Welcome, Sean. Magnificent control of the game. Score doesn't reflect the sheer dominance of the performance. I think that's pretty accurate. I think even though the intensity levels dropped in the second half, we never looked out of control today for me, Sean. I think I never felt that we were under pressure to the extent where we were going to lose the 3, or not the 3 points, but lose the win for the cup today. I think credit to Hibs for their goal, and I still applaud their approach to playing us. I like the slightly more adventurous side, and their big physical side as well. But I think you saw our quality shine through today, and I never felt that we were under too much pressure. From Jed, nice and simple, sexy football. I think certainly first half and certain parts of the second half, I think there was some great movement. I actually thought the chance that Palma missed towards the end of the match, you put that down to rustiness, but I thought the build up for that chance was excellent. Some real battling some skill in there as well, which was great. Ewan Boy Martin, regular to the channel, nice to hear from you, sir. We didn't have to go out a second gear today. Very impressed and excited to see what our team can do this season. Yep, I would agree with that. And then last comment here from Joseph McGonigal, some of the football has been a joy to watch today, which Celtic fans is absolutely what we want. So yes, completely agree with all those comments. Looking at the performance today, Sean, obviously we've always spoke about the fact we think we've got a strong enough first team to probably dominate the league without being disrespectful to any teams. And I know that everybody can raise their performance for individual games. I think now bringing a player like Ida in. What did you think of Ida? Ida's contribution when he came in? Did you think he obviously?
He looked like he was lacking a bit of sharpness, didn't he? There was no lack of effort. If anything, he was probably trying too hard. It sometimes happens, like if something doesn't fall for you, you put in a lot of effort to try and, sometimes strikers benefit from just kind of letting the game come to them. But and I'm not saying that was the case today, but he did look like some of his touches were heavy and his decision making wasn't quite there. But which is not to say he played poorly. Just we all know we've seen better from him. I think a good case in point for that might be that when Bernardo came on last week, he looked a bit off it, but he looked quite on it today when he came on. So I actually, there was times Bernardo, and I'm hesitant to use this comparison, but in my grainy coverage that I was watching, I could mistake him for O'Reilly at times, the way he was moving and things like that. So I was quite impressed with his showing in the last 15-20 minutes, whenever it was he came on. But yeah, Ida got a good reception, and look, he'll come good. He's just going to take a few weeks to get up to speed. I think it was a good decision from Rodgers and then to start with Maeda up front, as it's proved. I don't know that Ida scores those 2 goals. Maybe he gets a different one, but I'm happy with what Maeda and Kuhn in particular did in the first half. And Mikey Stewart on the coverage that I was watching gave man of the match to Maeda, and I probably agree. But there was a moment in about the 58th minute, just after Kuhn scores the 3rd goal, and Mattarelli plays a great through ball to him, and he's basically one-on-one with the defender, and he just takes it too close to the defender. And I think if he manages to create a bit of space and get a shot on target there, I'd probably give Kuhn the edge on man of the match there. But yeah, I think Maeda and Kuhn were the 2. But I know you guys are all saying Hatate was great, but I thought Maeda and Kuhn were the 2 best for me today.
Oh, I wouldn't disagree. I think the reason we pinpoint Hatate today is because we didn't see enough of that last season, either through injury and I think, through probably a struggle to get up to that kind of form. So I think that's the reason we pinpoint Hatate. But I would agree with you. I think the 2 strongest performers today were definitely Maeda and Kuhn. The one talking about the third goal there, it was a fantastic energy from Kuhn to really put the goalkeeper under pressure. But what I really enjoyed watching it back was I was watching Kuhn's movement, and he was tracking the run of the defender. And as soon as the defender cut back, before he'd even played the pass back to the goalkeeper, Kuhn was on the move, and he was watching for it. I loved that anticipation. And that's the type of thing that's going to endear the player to the Celtic fans. We talk about Palma. Palma, he's got skill, he's got ability. We've seen it, he evidenced it last year. He is a player who can make a contribution. But what we saw from Kuhn there to score that 3rd goal is something that I would always point to a player like Palma and say, that's how you get the fans on your side. that never say die attitude, that ability to run and chase a lost cause. And I loved that element from Kuhn. So, yeah, for me, he was a standout. I think, myself and Paul John, I think a few others in the Acsom community have said that this could be a breakout year for Kuhn. And it does show you that if we show maybe a little bit of patience with certain players, they can start to deliver the goods. Now, it's very early in the season. We've obviously not delved into Europe yet. But Kuhn, for me, looks like he could be a player to watch this year. I think he's one guy that we could end up relying on quite heavily. What did you make of Kuhn's performance overall today? I know you said that him and Maeda were two of the best performances, but what would you pick out from Kuhn's performance today as standing out?
Well, in the first half, what stood out for me was that he was really staying very wide, and with Hibs playing that back five, that kind of created space for Maeda in behind, where he was pulling the defender and the wing back out to him, and that kind of created space that way. And then in the second half, there was just times where he was getting a bit of space out wide. I think he's a really strong counter-attacking player. He draws that yellow card in the first 2 minutes of the game on the counter-attack. He's starting to get a lot more decisive than he was last year. And even if you think about, I know we prefer to focus on today, and based on this makes sense in my head, what you're saying about his pressure for that goal, that's a kind of Maeda and Kyogo characteristic, what he's done there. And I'm just thinking back to last week in terms of his development, where the goal he scores last week against Hibs was a very Abada, Sinclair, Jota type goal. So I think he's really developing his game in the way that Rodgers wants to see, that the fans want to see, in both those aspects. One, the pressure, two, making the runs into positions where he can capitalize on what other people are doing as well. So he's appears to have developed into a very useful squad member, and it feels like he's going to be a first choice going forward, to be honest with you. But my question, I guess, then is, Maeda's now fit. So with Ida in, or when Kyogo backs, or vice versa, who's the other winger? Is it Forrest or is it Maeda at that point?
As we said at half time, I think it's an interesting and probably quite a positive problem to have. Really, I mean, Maeda for me is a player that he has characteristics which I just love as a player, which I think is eventually going to turn him into that type of cult hero that the fans love. Because whether you play him on the wing, whether you play him through the middle as a centre forward, and irrespective of how many minutes he gets in either position, he always seems to be someone that gets the fans talking. He comes up in big moments. He has contributions. He gets a degree of criticism as well for his distribution and some of his play. And I think, again, you pointed to it today, there were a few gilt-edged chances that maybe he could have done better. But again, maybe that's sharpness that will come if he gets more opportunities in that position. Who knows? Certainly, he seems to retain the faith of the manager for Japan. So it'll be interesting to see whether he gets more minutes as the centre forward, or whether he does, become the established winger. Somebody made an interesting point in the comments there, which I'll just try and find and bring it up. But I thought it was quite an interesting comment. Here it is from Loopy33. Welcome to the channel. I was surprised that Yang came on before Palma. I actually noticed that as well, and I did wonder if is that an indication just that Palma maybe is still suffering a little bit from the injury, or is it a sign that maybe Palma's not quite earned the trust of the manager to come on earlier yet? Sean, what's your view on Palma? I mean, he did all right when he came on. He missed a bit of a chance he probably should have done better with, but you could put that down to rustiness as well. But I thought he put himself about okay today.
My initial reaction when Yang comes on was he's probably had a good week at training this week, and he's therefore being rewarded as the first substitution when we're relatively comfortable in a game. Palma, probably a little bit of the injury thing, but I think it's probably more that Yang's just showed up at training this week, and I think Rodgers has been very clear in the past that players can play their way into the team based on training performances. So I would assume that's what that was. I do think Yang is looking a lot like he's going to need to be loaned out, or he's not. I don't know if he's going to get enough football behind Kuhn, Forrest, Maeda, and potentially Palma here. So he's potentially 5th choice at the moment as a winger. I think he probably needs to go out to get like an hour or 2 per week of football that he's not going to get here. In terms of what that means for our Champions League squad, of course, like obviously he started games in the Champions League last year. I would be actually personally more comfortable if we had someone else in, like if we signed, say for example, Danny Armstrong from Kilmarnock. I would prefer to have Danny Armstrong coming off the bench in a Champions League game than Yang at the moment. And that's not to say Danny Armstrong or Yang will never be a better player. He probably will be at some point, but he's not at the moment. And I think he needs to go out and get that football to become a better player.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think there's you can see that there's potential there. I'm just not sure that he's going to get the minutes to really fulfill that potential this season. So maybe going out on loan and getting some exposure, regular first team football could be the best career move for him at this point, and certainly maybe the best for the club. And I would agree with you. I think if we do manage to move a few bodies out, whether it be on loan or permanently, I would like to see another winger come in, whether that's Armstrong, as you've said, or someone. But I think we need.
So just to be clear, I'm saying Armstrong because we have a gap for an association trained player in our Champions League squad. So if that's the reason for that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's definitely a consideration. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I mean, let's talk a little bit about one of the wingers who again played today and seems to be having something of a career renaissance in James Forrest today. What did you make of his performance today? That's two starts now.
I thought he was decent first half. I thought he kind of dropped off a bit in the second. I mean, he only played 15 minutes in the second half, but he was, he's the first one that got called off. So, and yeah, I think obviously he's not quite as dynamic as Kuhn, but he does seem to be a bit more direct and a bit more, he's got a better, I don't know, it's weird. Like he kind of holds the ball in a bit more rather than playing the passes. Kuhn can play, he's got a better range of passing than Forrest does, but Forrest seems to have a bit more, runs more direct to goal almost, whereas Kuhn's kind of lateral. I think that was his 496th appearance they mentioned on the coverage, so he's about 4 short of reaching the 500 club, which is no mean feat. He's no small feat, obviously. He's been around for a while and he's won Player of the Year. He's a legend of the club, and I'm happy to keep having him in the mix this season, whether we sign anyone else or not, regardless. I thought Taylor had a good game today as well, actually. There was one pass he played that was really sensational where he absolutely pings it in. I can't remember who it is. It takes I think it was O'Reilly. He plays it straight into O'Reilly's feet, absolutely high velocity, and I was like, "Oh, who's that?" And it comes back and it's Taylor. I was like, fair play. Guys had a good overall game. And I think a couple of people had mentioned, I'd seen it on social media as the game was going on, that Carter Vickers is making the kind of mistakes that if Scales is making, Scales gets absolutely hammered. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that one.
We did. We mentioned that at half time, and we know that Scales has been a little bit of a whipping boy. Like sometimes justified. Let's be balanced on it. There were points last season where I think he didn't necessarily handle pressure at times. I sometimes felt as though his game management, his game concentration suffered when we conceded in matches last year. That was something we spoke about. But I would agree. I think Carter Vickers has obviously got a huge amount of credit built up in the bank with our support, and rightly so. I think he is an absolutely class player. But I do think he started the season a little bit wobbly in places. He's not necessarily looking quite as assured. And we've got to remember he played, international football as well in the summer. But
Sorry, Chris, can I just pause you for a second? The cup draw is just about finished, and our Glasgow friends have got Dundee at Hampden, and we are just about to come out the hat. We have a home tie, and if I'm reading this correctly, it's against Falkirk.
Home tie against Falkirk, confirmed?
Yeah. So last ball, Celtic Falkirk. Yep, there you go. Quarterfinal, we're at home to Falkirk.
So we've got a game in front of our own fans, fantastic, and our rivals are playing. It was Dundee at Hambrookes.
Dundee at Hambrookes, yeah.
Okay, great. So that's our, as you can see, we don't sit still on this channel. Sean is on screens there, and he's keeping us updated. By the way, if anyone is wondering where Paul John is, the hardest working man in media and showbiz at the moment is on his way to Grace's for yet another night with Lubomir Moravcik. So everyone that's got a ticket for that, I think it's going to be a fantastic night. Paul John has shared a couple of tidbits with myself and Sean on some of the stories that Lubo tells, and I think it'll be an absolutely fabulous night. So I hope anyone that's going enjoys it, and I'm sure we'll get a full rundown next week from Paul John on some of the stories and the anecdotes that are told at that across the 3 nights that he's been with us. So looking forward to hearing about that. So I think today, I mean, as you said, Sean, I don't think there's a huge amount of negatives to dwell on today's performance. You mentioned Taylor. So again, like Scales, someone who sometimes gets a bit of criticism for his defensive performance. I thought today he coped defensively quite well, and I think, and actually Jim Moore sent this into the group chat earlier, that for all the defensive fragility Taylor has, he does have a real ability to contribute when we're going forward and when we're on the front foot. And I think that really, sometimes that value that he brings can be a little bit underrated. I think you saw today that he was contributing to the attacks. He was playing some great passes. Movement was good. He actually was quite fit this season. Looks as though he's got a good level of fitness this year. I thought on the other side, Alistair Johnson played very, very well. A little bit of an injury scare at one point, which is, it seems to be that every match we play now, we have our hearts and our mouths for one player or another because they've been subject to some rough treatment, but thankfully he was able to continue. I thought AJ played very well today. I thought, again, showed some good physicality, did well defensively and linked up quite well with Kuhn as well. I don't think he's overlapping quite as much as he did when he first joined the club, but I think he's another one that's adapting very well to Roger's style of play, and he certainly is in no danger, I think, of losing his position out there on the right-hand side.
Oh, of course not. I think there's only one overlap that really springs back into my memory, and that was in the first half.
Yeah.
I thought outside of that, it was more just him being involved in triangles and maybe a couple of round the corner balls against the low block. But yeah, you're right. It wasn't too much overlap. And that's an interesting one because that is a feature we have had at times. And I do wonder if it's just a, horses for courses thing in terms of the players that we've had. But yes, the fullbacks were both great today. I thought Scales was good overall. I thought Carter Vickers made a couple of mistakes, but also won a couple of good tackles. Midfield was sensational. Up front three were sensational. In terms of the subs, yeah, we talked about that. Palma, he snatches at that chance when he's got a good chance. And the commentary team were saying he should take it into the box. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I thought he could have passed it or could have actually put it on target. To be fair, I think it's a better idea to try and catch the keeper short and try and put it fast and low, which he's done, but he's put it off target. So I don't necessarily agree with the bad decision beyond maybe he should have passed it since there was 5 Celtic players in the box at that point. And it's one thing I was actually thinking about just now is we always talk about Kuhn coming inside and taking too many touches, right? And one thing I'm going to be looking for from now on is when he's doing that, how much are the other players moving? Because in the first half, when he was doing a lot of first touch passing, there was a lot of movement from the players around him. And there was points in that second half where, and I'm not talking about Kuhn in particular, but there was points in that in second half where a player was getting the ball and they were looking up and they were hesitating a bit. And I was like, there's not a lot of movement around here that you would expect compared to the first half. But there's a ball Matt O'Reilly puts through where Maeda's on his heels when he should have been running through for it, and Kyogo or Ida probably would have been running through for that. So it's something I'm going to watch out for when Kuhn starts cutting inside now is there enough movement at those moments?
Yeah, I think so. My observation I think concurs with yours, but I guess the question I would ask is this a symptom of the way we've started the season with a very high intense first 25 to 40 minutes? Do the energy levels have to naturally drop off because we're putting so much into it? I mean, that's the second game against Hibs where we've kind of raced into a lead, and then we start to get a little bit wasteful in front of goal. Some of the moves don't quite come off. Then you can get to the second half. And obviously, second half gives your opposition manager the chance to go in and reorganise his troops, right? So you're always going to see a reaction at that level. But I think, while it wasn't quite the contrasting game of two halves that we saw last week, I think you definitely see a different type of game, not just from the opposition, but from our players in the second half of matches. And I wonder if that's going to be something that we're going to see throughout the season. Now, when you're, again, with the greatest respect, going up against domestic opposition such as Hibs, and Hibs in a bit of a transitional period at the moment, new manager, new approach, and for me, they're actually doing some really good things, and I wish them well this season. But if we're going into play against European teams, and we're playing in that style, are we maybe more subject to getting picked off in the second half by these, again, with the greatest respect, much higher quality teams than we're playing?
That is something I was thinking about as well when I was watching the game. That's 2 weeks in a row now. Let me think, 3. Yeah, you could argue 3 that we've kind of got sloppy in the last half hour, and that was where my mind went when I was putting those dots together. Is this going to get us picked off in Europe? Are we going to get punished late in games? Like we kind of did last year, right? Lazio, we lost late. I know we beat Feyenoord late, but yeah, it feels like that is definitely a risk. And I wonder if that's the next kind of a job that Rodgers needs to do, is get, because it's almost a question. I don't think it's a question of fitness. Maybe a tiny little bit, but I would say it's more mental focus than anything. And I think that's, particularly in defence, obviously. So I think that's a job that the coaching team and Rodgers have to deal with, is keeping that mental focus for 90 minutes for Europe.
Yeah, and I think again this comes to the question of quality and depth. It's not just about having squad depth, but we actually need players of a sufficient level of quality to come in and enter games late and be able to help us with that game management, whether it's just seeing games out or, turning a game around if it's not going our way or adding to a lead. But I think looking at the substitutes today, you bring on Yang, you bring on Palma, I'm not getting the confidence from them that they're the kind of guys that keep on and change a game late on, irrespective of the opposition. Now, it's very difficult to get really high quality players who are not necessarily always going to play in the first team. But I think what you want is, I always go back to the kind of Aaron Moy type of player, type of signing. He was a guy who I felt from a game management perspective was great, really effective. He'd come in, he would shore it up, he would maybe take control of the pace and spread the play, that kind of thing. And I thought it was a great option to have. That type of player, I think, is one that we need to get. I've seen his linked with players like Endo at Liverpool, for example. I don't know how much truth is in that. Lots of people have spoken about we need another Wanyama style player. That's been spoken about for a couple of years. I think we need players of requisite experience to come in and help us navigate Europe, because I think this is a really promising first team. Mm-hmm. But outside of, say, the Callum McGregors and maybe you'd say Carter Vickers and Schmeichel, they're not the most experienced European team. James Forrest would fall into that category, the prior category as well. But, guys like Kung, even Kyogo, Maeda, okay, they've had, a couple of Champions League campaigns under their belt, but they're not seasoned, experienced professionals. Yeah, and I think, maybe we need to enhance a little bit of that experience in recruitment. What do you want to see from recruitment between now and the end of the window?
Well, I think Rodgers actually spoke. I didn't see the press conference myself, but I picked up some quotes, and he was talking about the type of players that we're signing, and that's, we should be, instead of signing, and I explicitly said this, instead of signing 2 to 3 £9 £2 to £3 million players, we should be signing 6 to £8 million players, and that way, instead of getting a 10 to 20 million return on 1 or 2 of those, we can get 30 to 40 million return. And again, I'm paraphrasing a paraphrase of what Rodgers said, but that's roughly what he said. So I'm hoping we're going into that kind of region there. But we're 10 days away from the Champions League draw. We still need some squad development. The problem is, if we bring in a player that's not association trained, then someone goes, and who are the players on that? That's Yang and that's Home. So that's the ones that have to go out on loan for me if we bring someone else in. Everyone's saying, why are we not bringing in Engels or Sanchez? before what why are we waiting for O'Reilly to leave before these players come in? Well, it's a numbers game for the Champions League. If one of those players come in, then somebody has to go out. The squad is saturated in terms of foreign players. So I actually would be very okay with bringing in Luke McCowan or Danny Armstrong. And I get what people are saying. These are not Champions League players. They're not. They're definitely not. But would I rather have Luke McCowan and Danny Armstrong coming off the bench than Yang or Home? Yes, I would. In a Champions League match, I would. I think that Home and Yang are going to be better players in the future, but this season, I would rather have McCowan and Armstrong.
Oh, controversial point, but yeah, I think there's a lot of merit in it. Excellent. Listen, we don't want to labour the point on recruitment. I think we've done that enough over the past few weeks. Today, I think, was again another great performance, really strong on multiple different areas of the park. There's another few goals. We're through in the cup, so hopefully we've banished the memory of Kilmarnock from last season. And we get another good cup run and could potentially, again, maybe get a treble. So, yeah, listen, thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the matchday coverage. Thank you, everyone that didn't drop off when they realised Paul John wasn't presenting the full time, but managed to stick with myself and Sean. Sean, thank you to you for coming on all the way from Australia. Late as over there as well. Amazing commitment we have from our international Acsom contributors. And yeah, we go on. We look forward to the next match, and hopefully over the next 10 days, we start to see some more movement and bringing that quality and depth that we really need into the side. All that's left for me to say is this has been a Celtic State of Mind. 3-1 Celtic versus Hibs. We're through in the cup and we go on to our next game. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yeah.